So tomorrow night is the beginning of the 2026 BetMGM Premier League of Darts. So I just wanted to give some quick predictions on what I think is going to happen on night one. We'll go down to quarterfinals, semis, and then we will make it to the final. Uh, so I just wanted to come on here real quick and just give a brief explanation. Not going to go too in depth into my reasoning because it's more honestly with me, it's more of just a guessing game and gut feeling rather than what I know for sure. But I've got a good feeling about these predictions. So, first quarterfinal, we have Josh Rock versus Johnny Clayton. I think Josh Rock is going to win 6-4. Johnny Clayton, of course, former Premier League champion, but I think Josh Rock is going to come out on top. I think this is a great format for Josh Rock. I think he's going to perform very well and possibly make it to the playoffs later on. We'll see. Um, Next quarterfinal, Luke Littler, of course, versus Gian Van Veen. I think Luke Littler is going to take care of him pretty well, probably by a decent margin. I'd say Littler six, Van Veen three. You just it's so hard to beat Luke Littler. You've really got to get him on a unique set of circumstances to take him off at this point in time. Van Veen's very good though. I think it's going to take him a while to kind of warm up to the Premier League, but probably after night one, we'll see him, you know, get into it pretty quickly. But facing off Littler right away is that's kind of frustrating for him. Next up, Luke Humphreys versus Gerwin Price. As much as I love Gerwin Price, I think that Luke Humphreys is going to take this one. I think it'll be close, but I think Luke Humphreys is going to take it. My bets are on him 6-5. Of course, Humphreys, the defending champion, winning in 2025 against Luke Littler in the final. Up next, Stephen Bunting versus Michael Van Gerwen. This could really go either way. I don't know if it's going to be this lopsided, but I think what's going to happen is Stephen Bunting's going to have, be putting way too much pressure on himself, obviously finishing last in last year's Premier League. He's probably going to be too focused on singing Titanium on his way out rather than being locked in and, focusing on the game at hand. What I think he should do personally is just walk out to some non-copyright sounds or something just so he can kind of focus up. But I think Michael Van Gerwen's going to take this one. This is kind of a little bit out there. I think Van Gerwen's going to take this 6-2. Now, is that really going to happen? Like I said, this could probably go either way. But I think Van Gerwen might come out on top. I know he's had a rough patch last year or so, but he did just win in Bahrain, I believe. Bahrain Darts Masters. So we'll see what happens with that. But I have him winning 6-2 onto the semifinals. Josh Rock versus Luke Littler. Now, again, this is kind of a lopsided score. I put Littler winning 6-2 against Josh Rock. Might be closer than that. It probably would be closer than that, but Littler, I'd say, having a pretty decisive victory over Josh Rock in that semifinal. And then, kind of same thing. I have Humphreys beating Michael Van Gerwen 6-3 in the second semifinal. And then finally, I think that Luke Humphreys is going to want to make a statement that he is still, reigning over the Premier League, and I have him coming away for the night one final 6-5 versus Luke Littler. Um, is that actually going to happen? We'll have to see. Of course, it's just some predictions by someone who doesn't really know what they're talking about. But I think that's going to be the way it goes. Speaking of statements, everyone's going to want to be making a statement on the first night. I think we're probably going to see some nervy performances, especially from the likes of Bunting, maybe even Van Gerwen too, because I think he has a lot that uh, he's going to want to prove, not necessarily prove, but just reiterate that he can perform the way that he has in the past. And Van Veen, Clayton back in the mix. Well, Van Veen for the first time. But yeah, so we'll just have to see what happens, and maybe I'll catch you next week. So there we go.